going through the review. The test is tomorrow. You guys don't have school Wednesday. And Thursday, we will start chapter 9. So, first question, geometric mean. How do you find geometric mean? Times the 2 and what? It's the square root of the product of the 2. You don't just multiply the 2 together. You take the square root of the product. Right? So we're going to take the square root of 3 squared to 6 times 5 squared to 6. What's the square root of 6 times itself? 6. 3 times 5, 15. 15 times 6, 90. So we're looking for the square root of 90, which is 3 square roots of 10. Right? Square root of 9 times the square root of 10 is 3 square roots of 10. Make sure if it's a radical that can be simplified that you know how to simplify them, because you'll want to put the most simplified radical as your answer. Okay? Okay, next 2 questions, you can do one of 2 ways. If the test comes tomorrow and you guys can't remember the formulas, okay, there's two types of formulas you need to remember for inscribed triangles. First one is AD is equal to the square root of BD times DC, otherwise known as the geometric mean between the 2 sides of the base it creates. The altitude is equal to the geometric mean of the 2 sides of the hypotenuse that it creates. Okay? Then we could deal with the side length AC is the geometric mean between the side closest to it and the whole length. That's a times. Or AB is the geometric mean between the side closest to it and the whole length. Those formulas are a lot easier than having to do the 3 triangle method. But I'm going to show you the 3 triangle method to refresh you, just in case you can't remember the formulas tomorrow. So, three triangles. Let's call the big one ABC. Let's make this triangle 2 and this triangle 3. So triangle 2 shares, let's say it's the 90-degree angle is at D, so is it here? And it is common to C, so this must be B. This is A, so this must be B. Everybody remember this, how to label them? First thing I did is I labeled the right triangles. The big triangle, the right triangle sits here. The 2 little ones, the right triangle is at D. So I labeled this B, that D, that D. Okay, then I looked to see if this is A, the triangle 3 shares vertex A, so I put A there. And triangle 2 shares vertex C, so I put C here. And then I just filled in the missing vertex with the letter that's left. Okay, now if this is 12 and this is 8, how can I find the hypotenuse? Pythagorean theorem. So I take 144 plus 64 and square root. So that's the square root of 208. And because it's fresh in my head, thanks to Bo, this is the square root of 16 times the square root of 13, which is 4 square roots of 13. So that's what this side is, 4 square roots of 13. So this is 4 squared to 13, and this is x. This is 4 squared to, no, that's the hypotenuse, 4 squared to 13, and I don't know, now I've lost my, this is A, B, C. So BD is 12. And AD is 8. So this triangle has a side and a hypotenuse. This triangle has a side and a hypotenuse. I can just set up ratios. 4 square roots of 13 over x is equal to 8 over 4 square roots of 13. So this times this is just 208 equals 8x. X equals, what did we get? 4, 16, 12. Is that right? No.
26.
Thank you. 8 goes in there, 20. Yeah. Okay. This is the long way. You only do this if you can't remember these. So let's do it this way and see if we can get it a little faster. So the altitude, 12, is equal to the square root of the geometric mean of the hypotenuse, the two pieces. Well, one piece of the hypotenuse is 8. The second piece of the hypotenuse is this leg. I'm not given that leg. I'm given the whole length, and I'm given this side. So that's that side. Does everybody see how I got x minus 8? Okay, square both sides. Add 64. Divide by 8. X is 26. A lot faster. But if you can't remember this, you're going to have to do this to get the question right on the test. Okay? I'm going to leave those up. Next question deals with the leg and not the altitude. So I'm going to use these. The leg, x, is the geometric mean between the side closest to it and the whole length. That's it. Can't simplify 39. So it's much easier to remember if you know the formulas. Go back and review them if you don't know them by tomorrow. Questions on that? Okay. How do I find x here? Anyone? Pythagorean theorem. So it's the square root of this squared plus this squared, which is, what, 7,300? What is a perfect square that goes into 7,300? The biggest one you can think of. Huh?
81.
100. And there it is. That is what x is equal to. This problem, it's an equilateral triangle. So what are all the angles in the triangle equal to? 60. This is 60. This is 60. If it splits the base in half, I have a triangle that's 60, 12, 24. What is the height? 30, 60, 90 triangle. 12 squared to 3. 1, 2 squared to 3. This is a square split in half by its diagonal. This is how 45, 45, 90 triangles are created. The diagonal is 30. How do you go from a side to the diagonal? What do you do? Okay, so how do I go from the diagonal back to a side? Divide by the square root of 2. Rationalize. I'm done. Okay, in the parallelogram, ABCD, AD is 14, and angle D is 60. Find AF. Well, that's the side opposite the 60. What do I have? Which side? Hypotenuse, opposite the 30, opposite the 60. Which one? Hypotenuse. Okay? One of the things I always told you is it's always easiest to get to the side opposite the 30 before you do anything else, because both the side opposite the 60 and the hypotenuse are from the 30. So it's easier for me to get from the hypotenuse to the 30, which is this side, by doing what? Divide by 2. So this is 7. That makes it much easier for me to find this side is 7 squared roots of 3. That makes sense? Okay. Find x and y. The hypotenuse is 8 squared roots of 3. So that means the side opposite the 30 is 4 squared roots of 3, which means this is the hypotenuse, sorry. Yeah, 4 squared roots of 3, which means this is 12. Right, 4 squared roots of 3 times the square root of 3. Everybody want me to do that again? Or did you follow? Yep. So I have this 30, 60, 90 triangle. I'm given the hypotenuse. I'm wanting to find the side opposite the 60. So I want to get to the side opposite the 30 first. To get that side, I just divide by 2 from the hypotenuse. So the side opposite the 30 is 4 squared roots of 3. Then to get to the side opposite the 60, which is what x is, I multiply that by the square root of 3. Well, the square root of 3 times itself is 3, and 3 times 4 is 12. So x is 12. That's the side opposite the 30. Now y is the hypotenuse. So I just double it. So x is 12, y is 24. And that's it. Okay, find x. What do I have related to the angle 16 degrees? Which sides do I have given to me? Opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Those are your choices. Adjacent and hypotenuse. Which function uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. So cosine 16 is equal to 8.3 over x. So I'm going to take 8.3 and divide it by cosine of 16. 8.6. What would be a good way for me to check to see if it even makes sense for that answer?
Make sure that's your biggest side.
Yeah. Make sure it's bigger than what's given to me. If I end up getting 5.7 or something, there should be some kind of a warning light going off in your head that you did something wrong. Because the hypotenuse is always the longest side. That makes sense? Always be on the lookout for ways you could just do quick checks to just ask if it passes the straight face test. That's what I call it. Okay. An A-frame house is 45 feet high, 32 feet wide. Well, if it's an A-frame, it's isosceles. And instead of drawing the 45 out, I'm just going to make it the altitude, because that's what it is. And then this is going to be 16, because it splits that base in half. And it wants to know the angle it makes with the floor. So which trig function can I use on this triangle? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Tangent, good. Okay, if I'm looking for an angle, I'm going to use the inverse tangent function. So it's inverse tangent of 45 over 16, which is, if I do inverse tangent, 70.4 degrees. It says nearest degree, so 70 degrees. A 38-foot tree casts a 16-foot shadow, and it wants to know the angle of elevation to the sun. So there's your x. Sine, cosine, tangent. Which one? Tangent again. So inverse tangent of 38 over 16, 67 degrees. A boat is 2,000 meters from a cliff. If the angle of depression from the top of the cliff to the boat is 10 degrees, how tall is the cliff? Well, remember, angle of depression is always measured against a horizontal. So that's the angle of depression, which means it's going to be equal to my angle of elevation. And this is 10 degrees. And I'm trying to find how tall the cliff is. Sine, cosine, or tangent? Tangent. I don't have the hypotenuse, right? $2,000. So I just take 2,000 times tangent 10 degrees, 352.7. And that is in meters. Okay, a plane flying at an altitude of 10,000 feet, so this is 10,000, begins descending when the end of the runway is below a point 60,000 feet away. Find the measure of the angle of descent or depression. Well, that's this angle, so it's equal to this one. Tangent again. Inverse tangent of 10,000 divided by 60,000. I could have just won 1/6. 9.46 degrees, so nearest degree is just 9 degrees. Okay, now we're going to get into law of sines, law of cosines. So this one, Bo asked me earlier when we were working, how do you know which one to use? Well, there is a method to know, but the easiest method is start with law of sines, and if you have too many unknowns, use law of cosines. Law of sines is the easiest one, and it doesn't take long to try and set your ratios up and see if it's going to work or not. If it works, it'll work. If you only have one unknown, you can do it. So I'm going to do sine of, I need to find this angle. So what, 110 degrees, so 70? Uh-huh. Okay, when I cross multiply, and I can just put the whole thing in. 23 sine 70 enter divided by sine 42. 32.3. This one, I can do the same thing. I can use law of sines. The thing that's missing this time is the angle, so I know I'm going to use an inverse trig function to find it. Sine x over 6 equals sine 38 over 17. So when I just multiply both sides by 6, I get 6 sine 38 divided by 17. Sine of x is equal to that, so inverse sine of that answer is 12.6. Nearest degree, 13 degrees. A tree grew at a 3-degree slant from the vertical. At a point 60 feet from the tree, the angle of elevation to the top of the tree is 14 degrees. There's the drawing. Still can't use just a plain trig function because this is not a 90-degree angle anymore. It's 3 degrees past. But I can find this angle. What is it?
What's that bottom number?
93. 73. Okay, and I'm trying to find this, so I'm just going to say sine 73 over 60 equals sine 14 over x. So I'm going to take 60 times sine of 14 and divide by sine of 73, and it's 15.2 feet. Okay, now this is an example of a law of cosines, but how could I have known that? Well, I'm just going to set it up and see what happens. If I want to try law of sines, I would say sine of x over 8 equals sine of, I don't know, another angle, I don't know it, over 9. I have too many unknowns. So this doesn't work. So now I know I'm going to have to use law of cosines. Yeah. So law of cosines, I match up the side on the left, the equation on the left, with the angle that's opposite it on the right. So if I'm trying to find this angle, the thing that's going to go on the left is the 8. So 8 squared is equal to the square of the other 2 minus 2 times 9 times 16 cosine x. When you're looking for the angle, the thing you have to be really careful about is how you're combining your like terms. You cannot just take in the calculator and add all of this together, because this is being multiplied by cosine x. These are both constants. Okay, so if you want to do it all in the calculator at one time, you can, but you just have to remember the order. So I'm going to take 64, I'm going to subtract 81, subtract 16 squared, and on the left I get negative 273 equals negative 2 times 9 times 16. Is that right? Yeah. Now to get cosine x by itself, I divide by negative 288. And then I'm going to take the inverse cosine of that. 14.4 degrees. You guys want to try that one? Just make sure you get the same thing.
Well, I know how to do it, but you did not get that. I got 18.6.
When I divided 273 divided by 288, I got 18.62.
270.
Negative 273 divided by negative 288 is 0.94.
0.94, and then inverse cosine. Oh, I did 2 this time. Sorry. I don't know what I did. 273 divided by 288, inverse cosine, 18.6. Okay. Now I have a triangle. X is 156, so that's the angle. Y is 18. z is 21. I can tell right now I'm going to have to use law of cosines. I'm trying to find this side. So x squared is 21 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 21 times 18 cosine 156. I can do all of this in one fell swoop. 21 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 21 times cosine 156. And then I have to take the square root of that number, 38.2. Okay, bonus problem isn't too hard if you know the formula. 2 square roots of 15 equals the square root of x times 16 minus x, the two pieces of the base. This is x, this is 16 minus x. Square both sides. 4 times 15, 60. X squared negative x squared plus 16x. So I'm going to have a quadratic to solve. X squared minus 16x plus 60 equals 0. What are factors of 60 that add up to 16? So x is either 10 or 6. How can I figure out which one it is? On the drawing, it looks short. But I could check it. If this is 10, well, how could I check it? I could solve for this leg and then do a formula if I want, but if I just use the drawing, looks like it'll be 6. Test tomorrow. Okay, if you're not getting something, go back through the videos of the section you're struggling with. Go back through the quizzes. I recorded those. Go back through this review. Okay, it'll be multiple choice. This was harder than the test will be because I didn't give you multiple choice on the review. But you'll have it on the test. Okay. All right.